Okay, we will now call our April 26, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting to order. Entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda and approval of consent agenda items.
Point of order.
Okay,
Reverend Mack, would you please ask if there are anybody wants to remove something from the consent agenda as is outlined in our policy BE?
okay, so at this time, you have that option to do so here. Okay,
I would like to.
all right. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda and approve the consent agenda items, but removing items 12, removing items 12, D, E, F, and G from the consent agenda, and place under item 10, since these audit and finance items were not reviewed at the committee of the whole, and to separate the Morningside action item from the other three items, with the Morningside item being F and the other items, Deer Park, Midland Park Elementary, and AC Cochran being H. Second.
Who seconded?
Excuse me, good afternoon. Can I make a friendly, I guess it's called like an amendment to that one? Excuse me,
Ms. Coakley,
I wasn't there.
Ms. Coakley, just one second. Let me just make clear the Ms. Darby made a motion and Ms. Green seconded motion. I just want, for housekeeping purposes, to clear the motion that was made. So Ms. Coakley, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon all, and I do apologize. Just if I'm doing this correctly, any discussion, I guess, in reference to CE Williams that may be on there. How do we take that off for further discussion, I guess, so that there's a little bit more community input in reference to anything that may be happening in reference to CE?
Okay, that motion was made by Ms. Darby and seconded by Ms. Green. Ms. Darby.
Hold on one second, I'm looking. So just to clarify, so Ms. Coakley, you would like to remove the C.E. Williams item.
12A.
I'm sorry, say 12A.
12A.
I'm okay with doing that. Ms. Green, are you?
As long as there isn't something that they have a timeline on that they need to have resolved. I mean, you know.
Well, I'm okay with it too, but I think we only need 3.
So from staff, there is no.
No, there's no timeline, just a little bit more clarification and understanding.
Yeah, we're just taking it off the consent agenda. We'll still vote on it tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so then that would be removing items 12A and then 12D, E, F, and G. And then separating for items 12F, separating those into 2 items. So we have the Morningside item, and then we have the Deer Park, Midland Park, and AC Cochran all together.
So I have a question.
One, that was Deer Park, Midland Park, and what was the other
AC
one?
Cochran.
AC Park. Okay, just one second. All right, Ms. Coates and then Dr. Frazier.
So what's the purpose of separating the projects?
Just because we as a board have already discussed and voted on Morningside at our March meeting, and the Deer Park, Midland Park, and AC Cochran have just been discussed in audit and finance. So just wanted to make sure we could vet those properly and just have a discussion on those separately.
Wouldn't the time to have done that been at the committee of the whole when it was on the agenda?
But we didn't, and so I'm asking to do that today.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Frazier. Okay. All right, any further questions? All right, Ms. Eric, you have it all? Okay. All right, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, Miss, who are we waiting on, Miss? You just got it? Okay, that motion passes. Item C, 1C, approval of minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Properly moved by Ms. Coates, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote.
Yes. You should be.
Okay, that motion passes. Entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Coates,
Second?
second by several. Ms. Green, Ms. Herrick, or Ms. Darby, either one you want to do. Okay, we ask those that's not a part of executive session, if you would, please excuse yourselves. We will call upon you to return once we enter back into open session. open session. Okay, we'll entertain a moment of silence and at this moment. Ask that you please stand for the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is with sadness that I ask you to join me in remembering several students that we have tragically lost in the recent weeks. The Baptist Hill Middle High School family lost a 10th grader, 16-year-old student, Fantasia Jenkins. Also, please keep the family of Chandrea Smalls in your thoughts. She was a 17-year-old 11th grade student who attended the Charleston School of the Arts. Also remember Vinnie Tellerico, a 3rd grade student who attended Pinckney Elementary School, also recently passed away. The loss of young children is never easy. Our sincere condolences goes out to these families. Sadly, we also lost a beloved teacher who taught at St. James Santee Elementary Middle School. Mr. Dennis Jones was a middle school math teacher who was loved by his students and colleagues. Twice winning Educator of the Year. He leaves behind his loving wife, Milani Jones, and his 13-year-old son, Jackson. Please join me in a moment of silence for Mr. Jones and our beloved students who will be so very much missed. God of love and God of mercy, embrace all those whose hearts today overflow with grief, unanswered questions, and such a sense of loss. Gracious Father, we ask that you grant them space, rest their tears, hold them close through these coming days. We pray these in Jesus' name, amen. At this time now, we'll entertain a motion. Item 4A.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's properly moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Coates, to approve item 4A, the issuance of contracts for the 21-22 school year. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that motion passes. Item 4B, homeschool application.
Move to approve the 2 homeschool applications as presented.
Moved by Ms. Coates, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. That motion passes. Item 5A, special recognition.
Thank you, Reverend Mack. Chairman Mack, Vice Chairman Darby, board members, and Dr. Postlewaite, as you're all aware, our nurses have carried a very heavy load during this past year. With National Nurses Day coming up next week, we thought it'd be a great opportunity to recognize them publicly. I'm hoping that most of them are actually watching and they'll get to see this presentation of demonstration of their efforts that they put in for this past year. With that, let's go ahead and run the video.
We have a few more nurses joining.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees, the Superintendent, and the entire school district, I'd like to thank our nurses as we come upon National Nurse Day on May 11th. As the first responders in our schools, you've been integral to our success of offering in-person learning for all grades since last September. In addition to picking up COVID-19 testing responsibilities, you've been a calming influence on our faculty and students during this pandemic. For our nursing leadership, the countless hours that you put in on contact tracing has been a critical element in keeping our schools safe. Additionally, your effort with the help of the school nurses in vaccinating nearly 4,000 of your district teammates has provided us with another measure of safety. Thanks again for all that you've done, and happy Nurses Day. Please join me in a round of applause for our nurses.
And I would like to say, while our nurses are still on behalf of the Board of Trustees, we would like to say to you, thank you so much for going above and beyond your scope of work and the duty and the contribution that you have made during these pandemic days. You have stepped up to the plate. We've gotten countless report of just how a superhero you have been throughout these times, and we just thank you for all that you have done. Those are just not words, but it's words of expressions and deep gratitude to what you have done during these times. Thank you so much for everything that you have done. Okay, at this time now, we'll go into public comments. Ms. Darby.
Okay, so this will be our first in-person public comment. So thanks, everybody. And I think we're bringing people in through the back door. We have almost 30 people, so we're gonna do a minute each. Well, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm going to leave documentation and research here for the panel members, please. My name is Mary Toko, and I come to you today as a concerned grandmother, a Christian, a patriotic American, a researcher, author, producer, and a natural health care advocate, and a previous radio host. I'm very concerned about the direction of our country and the tyranny, dictatorship relating to the children wearing masks to attend school. As a Christian, I look to the Bible for wisdom and direction in my life. Ephesians 5:11 says, "Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them." To demand that our children wear a mask to attend school, I believe, is intimidation, social conditioning, and emotional child abuse. To condition them by saying that this is the new normal is wrong. I understand that in the beginning of the 2020, we were in fear because we did not know what we were dealing with. We now know that much of what we were told was an error, whether intentionally or not intentionally. Are you kidding me?
Thank you.
Oh, not fair. Sorry, it's not fair.
I think so. I think so. I may remind. Welcome. If you will just share your name and you have a minute to speak, and there's a timer right there in front of you.
Hello, dear educators. We know you're working so hard to do your best for our children. You're sacrificing your lives to empower children and to nurture them to maturity. That's the definition of love, nurturing to maturity. Our children's well-being today, we are concerned about two threats to medical freedom and to emotional health. Has anyone here had a grandparent or parent die alone this year? Has anyone here, does anyone know a young person who took their own life? We never thought our children would face these things, and it's tearing at the heart and souls of our communities. Nothing calls the effectiveness of the mask into question as much as our elderly dying alone. It can be called touchless torture. And the CDC just published a study that mask wearing was ineffective. So did our parents and grandparents die alone for nothing?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you share your name, please?
Yes, Anna Maria Blevins.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Blevins.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Ziegler. I live in Mount Pleasant, and I have 3 children. My oldest is in kindergarten there. And I just want to take a minute to thank this board. Well, not a minute, but thank the board and all of the staff at Carolina Park Elementary for keeping our schools in person all year. That has been a huge accomplishment, and we are grateful for that. That being said, my daughter has had panic attacks for the whole year about wearing a mask. She's in kindergarten. She's learning how to speak, how to hear, how to read, and the masks are a permanent impediment to that. Additionally, she's out running on the playground, feeling like she can't breathe. So whenever we're standing here saying there's 41 cases of positive tests in the 1,000 students at Carolina Park Elementary. Let's give our children, that's for the whole year. Let's give our children the gift of normalcy. This is no longer life or death. The teachers have the vaccine. Anyone else who wants the vaccine also has it. Don't kick the can down the road. We're starting today. Take the masks off today. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please share your name, and you've got a timer for your 1 minute.
All right, thank you. My name is Marilyn Dombey. Humans have relied on facial cues for millennia, and allowing our children to be deprived of this is child abuse, period. A year ago, if someone said they were covering their child's mouth and nose for 7 or 8 hours a day, they would be investigated and charged with child abuse, and rightly so. Masking our children is grooming them to be faceless, voiceless, and submissive. The physical effects are just as damaging. My child has suffered painful rashes and increased acne on her face, and she now has frequent headaches for the first time. CCSD has sent out a survey regarding social and emotional health. No survey is needed. Just look at the huge increases in depression, suicidal thoughts, eating disorders, and other mental illnesses, and our kids are suffering. I want to remind all of you that you work for us. You were voted in, and we can vote you out. You are responsible for making these decisions for the health of our children. The mask mandates have been lifted and vaccines are available. We must stop this insanity and end the mask mandate today. Thank you.
Welcome. Please just let us know your name, and there's a little timer there for your minute.
Okay, my name is Cassandra Turner. I am only here remote because you guys are remotely considering masks for next school year. You took learning days away from our children so teachers and staff can get vaccinated. The masks need to come off. We accepted in the beginning because everything was new and scary. We are over a year into this, and there is tons of scientific research against masks, especially in healthy children. I've sent in that data, and you guys have refused to send me yours. You say your numbers are better than the community. Well, that's a no-brainer since children scientifically do not catch or spread the virus like adults and also don't test like adults. So to use it as a pat on your backs is ridiculous. We elected you because we trusted you to keep our kids' best interests in mind when making decisions about their education, not their health. You have failed. To force them to sacrifice their health for adults is child abuse. This is not a burden they should have to carry. You're making a blanket rule based on the minority. I do not care what other parents choose for their child. That's why at the very least, they should be optional, not strongly recommended, strongly optional. The governor removed all mandates for the state. So unless you are privy to some special science that no one else knows about, then stop making this political and make this about our children.
Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all are such a joke too by not letting us talk. And this is exactly why we're here. We elected you, remember that.
Welcome. Hi. Please just let us know your name, and then we've got a timer right there for your minute.
Okay, my name's Katie Sokol. I have 3 girls at Jenny Moore. I just want to say masking our children 7 hours per day, even when they're outdoors on the playground, is cruel at this point. It's harmful to our children emotionally, physically, and psychologically. Masks hinder learning and social development. By hiding teachers' lips and muffling their speech, mask wearing makes it difficult for young children to develop linguistic skills. Unable to rely on facial cues, teachers and students of all ages are more likely to misinterpret one another. How are children supposed to develop social skills when they can't see each other's faces? I realize that many adults feel safer with a mask on, and this is perfectly acceptable for those who wish to wear one. But requiring our children to wear them all day at school should be a parent's choice. It is painfully obvious at this point that masking our children serves no purpose other than providing a false sense of comfort to adults who should know better.
Thank you. Thank you. Please welcome, and please let us know your name.
Hi, my name is Katie Chaudhry. I did not bring my 4 CCSD children here today, but they have been wearing a mask for 140 days, 8 hours a day. I have some quotes from a kindergartner. It makes me stuffy. From a 2nd grader. We have to wear them at recess. I can barely breathe. I feel like I might die. From my 5th grader. I can't hear or communicate with my friends. It's ruining my social life. Very dramatic. However, the child has been wearing a 42-pound backpack around since August, while lockers have also been banned while wearing a mask. Our world changed 409 days ago. We were told 15 days to flatten the curve. We got our vaccine. Parents got it. Some teachers got it. Staff got it. We're still wearing our masks. Today, 362 people tested positive for COVID, 26 in Charleston County. While I am sympathetic to those 26, what about the 50,000 K through 12 CCSD students that struggle to breathe 5 days a week. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please share your name, and there's a little timer right there for the minute.
Tara Wood. I want the mask mandate on our children removed immediately. Wearing masks are proven ineffective for the purpose of this mandate and potentially harmful. The latest Stanford study finds although scientific evidence supporting face mask efficacy is lacking, adverse physiological, psychological, and health effects are established, and masks should be avoided from use. It is a myth that masks prevent viruses from spreading, which is why in March of last year, medical experts, including Dr. Fauci, stated all over the news, we do not need to wear masks. Remember that? Are we to believe that face masks suddenly started preventing the spread of viruses in 2020? We know the majority of deaths from COVID are people over 65, especially over 85. Young adults and children have almost 100% chance of survival. Most teachers are young adults. You are going to have so many health issues on your back if you do not stop this nonsense. We have got to stop living in fear. Please use common sense, wisdom, and compassion for our children rather than fear in making your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you for the 1 minute. It should have been at least 2. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, I am Maggie Marlowe, and I'm here to tell you that these mask mandates are recommendations based off of opinions in government-run medical institutions. This also means that the use of face masks are an experimental protocol issued under the Emergency Use Authorization as a prophylactic treatment to SARS-CoV-2, and as such cannot be mandated to anyone. Cloth masks are not authorized for personal protection equipment under FDA or any other health organization as preventatives of a virus such as COVID. According to the Emergency Use Authorization, it also means that any intervention, especially one with prophylactics, must cause fewer harms to the recipient than the virus itself. Recent studies show that K through 12 students do not contract COVID. Meanwhile, teaching is inhibiting masks, voices are muffled, critical social interactions among students is fractured, visual speech cues are hidden, students with sensory disorders are being ignored, anxiety, depression, and even suicide rates are rising.
Thank
and
you.
MUSC has stated
Thank you.
that they have seen more ER visits for psychiatric cases in students that have COVID at the same age.
Y'all I think they must. Y'all are doing great. Thank you. I know. I'm waiting for Cindy to say that to me.
Next group is coming in now.
Next second. Okay. Thank you. Did you? I didn't get signatures. I just wondered if they were. Welcome. If you will please just share your name, and we have a little timer right there.
My name is Kristen White. I have 2 kids in Charleston County District, and I'm a former teacher myself. I am adamantly against our schools continuing this mask mandate. The scientific research is showing, you're hearing all kinds of studies, but one you may not have heard of is called the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, done by a team of German researchers. And all of the symptoms you're hearing that are causing kids to be sick in school and be harmed by masks, sure, they're all the same. You hear about exhaustion and trouble breathing, headache, fatigue. My own kids are reporting these symptoms the second they get in my car at the end of the day. But one you might not be hearing about, one symptom is decrease in empathy perception. That means that masks are causing our kids to not have as much empathy for others, for their teachers, for their fellow classmates. How can we ignore? What an awful symptom to ignore.
decrease of empathy perception has been studied with mask usage for a year, and we are finding that kids are less empathetic to others.
Thank you. Thank you.
My son with a disability needs 2 minutes. 2 minutes? Good afternoon. My name is Blake Adams. I'm a James Island father of 2 children, one in grade school.
Sir, I just want to be clear. You only will receive 1 minute. So I just want you to just understand that, okay? We want to hear what you have to say today, but the policy is 1 minute today.
I'm here on behalf of so many parents who are being pushed out of Charleston public school system after our children have been forcefully subjected to wearing masks all year. I do not take issue with anyone else choosing to wear a face mask, but I believe it is in the best health interest of my children not to wear face masks 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. But the school district created an ultimatum: no mask, no education. So my family became public school refugees, and I enrolled my daughter in private school last summer. We moved to JVI for the public school offerings, attended Murrah Saint for K4, but as public policy developed last year, I lost all faith in you guys. I got spooked. I did not want my daughter's learning to be disrupted, and in and out of virtual, treated like a leper with all the arbitrary rules, masking up everywhere, even outside. The absurdity has no bounds. We know children, some of us have children who've become afraid of other people, kids who may be hypochondriacs for the rest of their lives, kids who've missed social development interactions that are crucial, cherished in childhood, not being able to see a teacher's mouth, the 5-year-olds learn language reading. What about our children with special needs? The glares and the partitions making it tough to see the board, all the sports and activities that have been unnecessarily interrupted, the missed proms. So here we are, everyone in the country, this includes teachers who has the opportunity to take the vaccine. The rest has either the virus or they trust their health and immune system. There's an entire world of us who are living our lives, interacting maskless. So why psychologically burden and condition our children in school all day as if the mask accomplish anything anyway? It's time to live this last mandate so we can concentrate on other ways the school board can restore and promote quality.
Now, if we were to have another outburst like that, when I hit the gavel 3 times, I want you to exit the room, okay? All right.
Somebody take the candy. Sorry.
Reverend Matt, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead. If you'll just share your name. Oh, sorry about that. If you'll just share your name and we've got a little timer right there.
I'm Amber Hoover. I'm here to ask you to ban mask requirements for our children. Children are less likely to fall ill from COVID-19, and if so, their illness is usually mild. South Carolina does not have a statewide mask mandate, yet it's required of our children in school. The NIH reports that adverse psychological and physiological effects are established. My own children, ages 8 and 11, have reported frequent headaches over the last year since being masked for 7 hours a day. Before the masks, neither had reported a single headache. My 11-year-old's anxiety has risen over the last year. These masks are a breeding ground for bacteria, especially in school-aged children who are expected to wear these over their faces during recess and PE. Children are less likely to be active during wearing face masks as well. With obesity rates rising to 22% in children ages 10 to 17, we've got to do better. What are the long-term effects of these mandates? We just don't know. We've got to do better for our kids. Please ban the mask requirements.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Right there, there's a.
Hi. My name is Oliver Weinbrenner and I attend School of the Arts in North Charleston. I'm a theater major there. I auditioned my 5th grade year to go there my 6th grade year. I've been there all 3 years, and for the last year and a half, I have not been able to participate in my art, which is the whole purpose of my school. Currently, we just got approved to do a show, and it's outside, 6 feet apart, and there's going to be masks sewn into the masks that will already be on our faces. We're doing the Hobbit, so it'll be sewn into our beards. I don't really understand why we're still wearing masks, regardless of whether I'm outside or not. And even now that we are outside, I still don't understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome. Please share your name, and there's a timer right there for you.
My name and my what?
Just share your name just share your name.
My name's Mark Flanner. I work in Charleston County as a teacher as well. I just want to put that out there. You already started on me, huh? We are scaring the children. I know this because I've asked them. I'm one of the only teachers that do ask them. It seems like they're dealing with it and people call them resilient. It's courageous and brave that they are. It's not resilient. Don't disrespect them by saying that. I've asked all of my students this year if they're afraid of coronavirus, and all but one of them said yes, because they're afraid to die. One third grader, an 8-year-old who doesn't speak English very well, I couldn't understand her because of her mask. And I found out she was crying because she was scared she was going to catch coronavirus, take it home and kill her parents. We know that this is absolutely false. Why didn't she believe her parents when her parents told her that it wasn't dangerous? It's because this is what we're telling them with the masks everywhere. It's a tragedy. It's a devastating message we're sending, and it's absolutely inexcusable that we're doing it. At this point, we have to call it what it is, a lie.
Thank you, Mr.
Masks
Brennan.
on children is not needed, and it's a lie, and we need to take them off.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Allison. I have 2 children in the CCD schools. And anyway, I'm very concerned not only about masks, but also the vaccinations that are going to be happening in the schools. I don't know if a lot of people realize that the CIA did a study on masks, found that it makes people uncomfortable and it's a form of torture. And I think that our children are being held hostage. And it's making people want to go get vaccinated because they think it's going to help make things better, but it's really not. In fact, it's very concerning to me that someone like Bill Gates, who believes in depopulation and transhumanism, along with the CCP, which are also another big funder of the WHO and the CDC, are the ones that are behind these vaccines. And we do not know. They're experimental, and they're already people having terrible side effects. There are over 3,000 deaths. Many more people are being harmed. And one of the big things they're finding is that it's causing infertility. It's causing, and this is something that some people are saying is mass extinction event. Thank you. Yep, right there. Welcome. Please share your name, and there's a little timer right there in front of you.
Got it. My name is Bill Mahar. I'm married to a primary healthcare provider and have 2 children who are 10 and 8. I come from a family of educators. My grandmother was a grade school teacher, my grandfather a high school principal, and my mother taught middle school. I have a deep respect for the profession and the incredible challenges brought on by COVID. Our teachers are extremely stressed and doing their absolute best to help their children. Parents are stressed, worried about their children, worried about finances, worried about everything on the news we've seen in the past year and a half. As adults, that is our burden to bear. Who should not be stressed? Who should not suffer? Our children. Our children have been caught at the intersection of extreme caution, fear, and the lack of solid information from credible sources. Being prudent and erring on the side of caution made sense initially. As we lived through the pandemic and continue to collect and analyze data, not only from America, but from globally, it is clear our children are not at risk by being harmed by this virus. We must protect our children. Schools exist to educate and develop our children into strong.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hello, everyone. Scott Stamps. I have 2 children at James Simmons Elementary School,
Scarlett, she's 7. She's been in speech therapy since she was 4. She now has speech therapy with a mask on. Her teacher has a mask on, and she's backsliding a lot because of that. Charlie, my 5-year-old, he's that kid that I thought I'd never get to school to wear a mask. He is pulled through. He makes it. He goes to school. But guys, the joy's gone. He doesn't want to go to school anymore. He used to love it. He can't interact with his friends in the playground. He's got the mask on even if it's hot. That's a Montessori school, by the way, James Simmons. Y'all probably know that, of course, but it's not meant for this. The curriculum's designed for kids interacting, teaching each other, learning by touching things. So it's basically not a Montessori school at this point. The question before you is, I guess, cost benefit analysis of these masks. And my example is my youngest daycare. He's 2 years old, been daycare since May. Those kids are slobbering over each other every day. No transmission between the kids, no transmission between families. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. I'll speak up. You can speak right in there. Just share your name, and there's a little timer right there.
Okay, so my name is Matt Wisnant. This is my son Carson in 6th grade at Allegro. This is my son Jackson in 5th grade at South Point Elementary. I just want to say that everything about the mask mandate for children doesn't make sense. It's harmful to children. They need to see each other's faces. They need to be able to make friends. This is the most precious time in childhood, and we're taking valuable, unreplaceable time away from children. They need to see each other's faces. They need to see their teachers' faces. People need to be able to understand them. Most of all, they need to breathe. The masks are not protecting them. The masks are not protecting teachers. There's not a scintilla of evidence from anywhere in the world that says that children are a threat to each other or to teachers. Now, my kids want to say something really quickly.
So all I want to say is that I think we should have a right to like see our friends' faces and breathe in this world.
Yeah, there you go.
God gave us air for a reason, and these masks are taking away the privilege.
All right.
Thank you
guys.
both.
Thank you for the chance to speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome. If you can just share your name with us, please.
Okay, I am Farron Duran, and I am speaking, obviously, about the mask. We're all here for that, right? But I'm speaking from someone who's worked in the front lines and someone who I wear a mask every single day. But the thing is that you probably don't realize is that even on the front lines, we take our masks down. We turn away from patients so we can breathe. We have headaches every day when we leave work. We ask to switch with staff so we can breathe. And you're not, whatever is in place right now isn't allowing the same freedoms to our children. I'm allowed to take my mask down so I can breathe, but my child has to keep it on for 8 hours a day. And I'm asking you, as a mom who decided to homeschool her kids, and my husband's not working, and we're trying to scrounge up money so we can keep this going, if you can take the masks off of our children so they can breathe like I can when I'm working on the front lines, dealing with patients every single day. If I can do it with COVID patients, they can certainly do it in school so they can get a pleasant education. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for your time. My name is Margaret Rodenberg. I'm at Mount Pleasant Academy. This is my daughter, Catherine Rodenberg. Thank you all for your time. I heard a couple of other people say this, but I come from a family of public school educators. My mother's a retired New York State public school teacher. My sister's a public school teacher, aunt's a principal. I've got 5 aunts who are teachers. They are crying at what is going on. And we're talking up in New York. I'm not talking even about the masks. It's so insane. I'm getting an email about social emotional learning. Why would I trust a school district to do social emotional learning when you're masking and caging my children right now? It's insane. Get instruments in their hands, open recess, have art classes, have more gym classes, anything you can do, and they will be socially better off than what they're doing right now. We're grateful they're open, but we've got to cut this out. And another thing with my 9 seconds left, we are not going to have boys in girls' sports in South Carolina or in Charleston County. Okay? It's not happening.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Nicole Drennan, and I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And I moved here in September from Illinois because I wanted my children to have the ability to go to school and have a normal life and not wear a mask. They have been going to Lighthouse Christian Academy since September, and they do not wear a mask. They have lunch with their friends. They have centers. There has been no issue with COVID at all. And so I would like the opportunity to continue to have my children go to public school and not have to wear a mask. I feel that it should be our choice if we want our children to wear a mask. And it's your choice if you want to wear a mask. I don't want my children to have to be forced to wear a mask all day. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Mindy Herbert. The time is now, y'all. Do not wait to address this issue. The mama bears are awake and we're not going away. You need to make masks optional. A primary responsibility of the school board is to ensure the best possible education experience for all of our children. You're not doing that. You're not doing your jobs. Requiring masks on children is not providing the best educational experience. Children are most vulnerable to the damage that happens physically, psychologically, and emotionally when they're forced to wear a mask hours and hours a day. Stanford University says that children have developmental needs and require them to see each other's faces. They need social cues. I'm sorry, I'm emotional about this topic. When you ask them to wear a mask, you cut all that out. So you have harms on one side and very little benefit on the other. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Ruth. I'm the mother of 2 CCSD students. I am a mother and an educator of children for the past 13 years, and I know how important it is for children to have face-to-face interactions with their peers and their teachers. By restricting face-to-face interactions, we are hindering our children's development. As we all know, children are rarely affected by this virus, and the older community now has many different avenues to protect themselves. Thus, our children should not be the ones to carry this burden. Our children should be able to breathe freely, play mask-free on the playground, and be kids again. Please make masks optional in our schools. Let our kids run and play together without struggling for air. Enough is enough. We as parents want to make the choices for the health and well-being of our children. You were elected to stand up for our kids and act in their best interests. By keeping this unnecessary mask mandate in place, you are not protecting the child's growing brains, learning development, and sense of self. Our children need to see their friends and teachers' faces in order to properly learn and grow. Our children deserve to be free from this burden. Please unmask our children.
Good
Good evening. My name is Lisa, and I am a mother of 4. I'm not a politician. I am just a plain old mom, and I'm really, really concerned about the children. I have 2 teenagers, a 4th grader, and I have my concerns about them, but my biggest concern is my littlest one who's about to start kindergarten. And all the friends that we have that have preschoolers, none of them have been in masks all this time at their preschools, and they've all been lucky and no one's had any issues, but so much of what they learn is based on facial expressions. And I think they have a lot of anxiety not leaving home for the first time for a full day in kindergarten. And to think of them just seeing a bunch of faceless faces all day and being away from mom for the first time, I just pray that y'all will consider them and the fact that we, thank goodness, have these vaccines that can make our teachers safe and give our little ones an opportunity to learn to their fullest and be comfortable at school.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wendy Brady, and I am here advocating for my daughter. My daughter has been through the CCSD school forum. She graduated 2 years ago. She is actually a CCSD employee. She works for Kaleidoscope in Mount Pleasant. She has asthma. She is not able to do her job effectively or be able to take care of the children. My child is an avid swimmer, an avid cheerleader. She has cheerleaded competitively her whole entire life, and as with swimming on a high school level and all. She's never once had to tote an inhaler or had an asthma attack until she went back to work in the fall for CCSD. She's had 3 asthma attacks since she has been back to work. So I'm advocating for her and the children that she takes care of. She doesn't feel she can do her job effectively working for Kaleidoscope. I am not here to get her fired from her job. She loves what she does. She attends the College of Charleston. She's a straight A and B student. She joined a sorority. She's on the row crew at CFC. I have nothing bad to say, but
Thank you.
What
Thank you.
is going to happen if she has an attack while she's going for the job? Thank you. Thank you.
That is it.
Thank you. Thank Ms. Reidenbach and your team. Thank you very, very, very much. We appreciate that.
Okay.
Really ought to give a special thank you.
Yes.
We never knew he could get over a table quite so. But don't be fooled.
Thank y'all very, very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. At this time now, we have the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Before I start, did the board want to mention the public comments that were received online?
We did. I did not have access to, they were on my Google thing. So does anybody have them up on?
Well, I think that because we've used up our time, we wouldn't read them out loud, correct?
Yeah, we don't have, we would just acknowledge that we do.
That's correct. I'm just asking for the
Yes.
record to
Yes.
acknowledge receipts. Thank you.
We did receive them and all of the board members have them. I just hadn't looked at them yet, so I apologize.
Thank you.
Good point.
And in the meantime, we're ready to start the superintendent's report. The PowerPoint is up here. We know you have a lot of business to conduct tonight, so our report is brief. We wanted to share the disease activity by county. Charleston is considered in the medium range. You can see that our number per 100,000 is medium. Our trend is medium, and our percent positive for those going to get tested is low, but still with 2 mediums and 1 low, we're in the medium range. The next chart is the one that we've been following for the past several months. It shows you week by week. The blue line shows the number of students who have COVID, and the orange line tracks the number of employees. So we are really pleased. You can see when the vaccinations began, it appears as though there is a correlation between when the vaccinations began and the reduction in the employees' rate of infection. However, for students, we've seen the 4th straight week of increase in student infections. Mr. Brower, you want to say a little more about that on the next slide?
Thank you, Dr. Postlewaite. So my first, we've got this graph up here, and this was provided to us by MUSC, and it just demonstrates that the number of cases by percentage is increasing in children over the course of the last several months. And that's something we're seeing here in the district as well. Next slide. So let me touch real quick on vaccinations. We had a highly successful run with staff vaccinations led by our nurses team. We did complete almost 4,000 of those last Friday. We begin student vaccinations for those that are 16 years and older tomorrow. We'll be beginning at West Ashley High School. Our partners at MUSC and FEDER and East Cooper Medical Center are helping us with this effort. We've got at least one day assigned at every school and for the first and second doses, and the larger schools may get 2 days. So we start that process tomorrow. So the next bullet really captures the information that has been presented to you all tonight by public comments. And I want to present some points on the opposite side of the fence and to identify why we're still interested in maintaining the mask mandate for the last 38 days of school, at least at this point. On the last slide, I noted that there was a percentage increase in kid cases. In the previous slide, you did see that in the number of cases in the school district, 69 and 74 respectively among kids. So kids are getting COVID. I want to point out that MISC, this is a big point from MUSC that they made that with me, is that in the state of South Carolina, there's been over 100 cases. This is a significant potential, I would say potential side effect from COVID. Most of the kids that have got MISC have either had COVID or were in contact with people that had COVID. So there's a strong inference that COVID does have something to do with MISC, and it's a very significant problem for children. A number of the speakers talked about studies that are out there. I will say any study that I get to refute mask wearing is given to MUSC, and we continue to provide that. As of yesterday, so 1 day old, I was told by Dr. Eckert that she has not identified any of the citations that support the notion that mask wearing is not helpful and is a problem. None of the ones that were provided provide compelling evidence or compelling data. The most significant health risk that they've seen at MUSC is one of the points made by a speaker, and that's rashes on faces, but that's nothing that can't be treated. Nothing more serious than that has been identified by MUSC. I also wanted to point out that there are references in the document we have online that support masks. This document is available whenever a parent contacts us to question the validity of that conclusion. There are studies that are referenced by MUSC in here, by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Lung Association that talk about mask wearing. Lastly, I just wanted to point out that mask breaks are authorized, and we'll continue to emphasize that with our teachers. So it isn't straight 8 hours. It isn't just when they're eating. Teachers are authorized to provide mask breaks, especially when kids really need it. And that's left up to them. We'll make sure that they have that word and understand that's consistent across the district.
Thank you. We have two more topics to just review quickly. One is a new piece of legislation, Senate Bill 704, which has now been signed into law. There are three parts to Senate Bill 704. The one you've probably heard the most about is that it required all school districts in South Carolina to offer in-person instruction. The second part of that bill makes it easier for districts to hire teachers who were previously retired. It raises the cap that they on the income earnings before they are deprived of their retirement earnings. The one we want to talk about today is just to point out the third part of Senate Bill 704. For this coming school year, cautions districts that if it is absolutely necessary to have a teacher teach simultaneously in person and a virtual class, that teacher would be compensated for doing that. I think everyone understands that this year it took a combination of approaches to make things work in order to allow parents the flexibility to start online and then move into the classroom. But if we do that next year, we must, it's very reasonable to think that teachers would be compensated, and then we are required to send a list to the State Department of Education of the number of classes in which that has been essential in order to carry out the instructional program. Finally, we want to mention to you, you may read about other districts' plans for the federal COVID recovery funds. I think the School Boards Association is having a seminar about that coming up very soon. And here are some guiding principles that we have established so far. A significant amount of funding will be coming to Charleston County. I think that Mr. Kennedy will either bring some details about this through the Audit and Finance Committee, or we may wait till the Committee of the Whole so that we're sure that all the board members are participating. He'll bring details about the amount of the funds, but just so that you know, in case someone asks you, here's sort of the way we're thinking about this. We're remembering the lessons from the past when large amounts of federal money rolled out to districts. It was difficult a few years later to find any evidence of those expenditures in most districts. So we're thinking about what we learned the last time we had these huge federal grants rolling in to be helpful to states and districts. We want to understand the nuances of what the categories are that we're allowed to spend the funds on. So there are these big categories that are listed, but when you get into the regulations, there are a lot of details that we don't well understand yet. We want to avoid funding disjointed projects or initiatives that don't really tie in systemically. We want to avoid budget encumbrances beyond the life of the grant. So we have to be really careful if we hire personnel that we make it clear to the personnel it's a 3-year commitment and those funds won't be available. And I'm using 3 years as an example because that's what we think right now the life of the grant funds will be. The board already has a good start on this, getting really clear about what our goals are, what the priorities for the immediate future are, and the strategies. This coming year, I think it's already occurred. Ms. Simmons and Dr. Williams, Carolyn Belcher are inviting all the schools to identify the needs that they have and to suggest approaches. There's a sort of a form that they fill out and can submit so that there's an opportunity for teachers and principals to be involved, looking at where their children are and what they think the needs are. The communications department is planning for an extended involvement as appropriate of stakeholders around the goals, identifying the needs, making sure that we understand what it is that will be most helpful to students. We do want to concentrate, and we would urge the board to hold us accountable for investing funds on high leverage activities, to the extent possible, promising practices that have proven track records of results. And then finally, I'll close as I opened, we'll get more detailed information to the board just as quickly as we can. Our preference would be through the committee of the whole, but some preliminary information may be shared through audit and finance. That concludes the superintendent's report this evening, Reverend Mack.
Are there any questions for the superintendent on the report? Dr. French.
Yeah, regarding the legislation that just came through,
yes, ma'am.
One of the things I was wondering about, do we think that might impact some of the course offerings that we were thinking about in terms of trying to be innovative about kids at different high schools might want to participate in a course? Would it prevent a teacher from teaching in person to one group of students and then virtual to a second group of students, for instance?
It doesn't. It permits us to parse periods for delivery, and it still permits us to provide the simultaneous delivery of in-person and virtual, but it acknowledges that that's an extra burden on the teacher and always has been, and we need to acknowledge that from here on with a compensation package that is reasonable and appropriate.
So basically it's just a budgeting issue
Primarily, yes. But it's clear that it's intended to discourage districts from burdening teachers in the kinds of ways that we resorted to this year.
Right.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, thank you so much. Item 8A. Ms. Belcher?
Yes, thank you, sir. So as you know, we put extra priorities this year in the acceleration schools and making sure that we're putting more supports in place to help them. One of the things I'm very proud of is that through a lot of work of everyone in learning services who are working in schools, we tried to protect the acceleration schools and ensure that some of those investments still continue despite obviously the more challenging context. We wanted to go deep into one of our strategies because it describes our overall approach to school turnaround, and that's our partnership with the University of Virginia and the PLE. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Simmons if I can, because she brought the University of Virginia partnership into CCSD before I arrived.
Good evening, Reverend Mack, Ms. Waters, board members, Dr. Postlewaite. In the fall of 2019, we decided to pursue a partnership with the University of Virginia's Darden School of Education and Business. The partnership is supported and grounded in our strategic plan, which specifies in a couple of places that we would provide effective professional development, learning opportunities, and coaching to district staff, principals, and teachers. The UVA collaboration primarily focuses on school turnaround efforts, leadership, instructional infrastructure, support, and accountability. So today we wanted to allow some of the fine leaders associated with the acceleration schools to give you some of the big themes of the work that's taking place that we're really excited about.
And I believe you've met Ms. Haynes prior to this on a Zoom call, but this is Ms. Jackie Haynes, who's the executive director of the acceleration schools.
So Ms. Belcher, would you like to discuss the greatest opportunities at this time?
Certainly. So I think the board members who were on the board last year received a copy of the 2019 site report. So Maggie, if you would go to the next slide, please. In that process, they went through and met with all the senior leaders here. They also had conversations with some of the acceleration school principals and made some judgments about where we had some real strengths and where we might have some opportunities for improvement in terms of acceleration schools. So this lists the things that we heard from the UVA team now over a year ago when they actually came in. So this idea of making sure that we were really prioritizing within our district strategies, the acceleration schools, providing additional resources, which I believe we've done, making sure that there were more common and shared expectations of what should happen within an acceleration school, particularly instructionally, making sure that principals had autonomy and opportunities in order to drive their own school transformation. So coming up with their own plan for what that would look like, making sure that we were actually using the flexibility that we do have in Charleston County to hire principals in who really wanted to work within an acceleration school. And we did see some transition of principals at the time and had around 6 new principals within the acceleration schools, one of whom is here tonight, Mr. White. They also suggested that we better leverage our teacher evaluation data in order to make sure that the teachers who are working within these schools wanted to be there and were effective, and that we're really defining what it looks like when instruction is done well, and that we're creating those expectations in a very clear way so they're understood by others across the system.
Thank you, Ms. Belcher. So as we look at our promising practices that are highlighted and that were observed by UVA, and several comments were made that our district has a bold vision to transform practices and to pursue the work immediately and to ensure, and they know that we're doing it with a sense of urgency. Another promising practice was that our district has and will continue to develop the leadership selection process and focus on teacher talent management to ensure that we keep top teachers and top leaders in our acceleration schools. And our schools are receiving a high level of responsiveness and tailored support that's focusing on accountability. As you look at the next slide, you will see our vision statement. We have a fantastic, really hardworking UVA district team that consists of our Chief Academic Officer, Carolyn Belcher, Associate Superintendents, Ms. Williams and Dr. Williams, Human Resources, Mr. Brigman, and our Acceleration School staff, myself, Tanya McIntyre, and members of Learning Services, Ms. Woody, and Testing and Assessments, Ms. Roberts, and our principals. And as you can see, our vision statement, the bottom line is we will excel. We have 5 schools that are in our 2020 cohort, and we will add 7 schools to the 2021 cohort for next year. The next slide states that CCSD schools, we have a turnaround framework that comes from the domains of rapid school improvement. There also are some of the levers from UVA, and they are leadership, that district leaders nurture a strong partnership with principal to consistently solve leadership problems, build capacity, and remove any barriers that leaders may have. Talent management, that we focus on recruitment, placement, retention, and development of highly effective leaders and highly effective teachers. Our instructional infrastructure, ensuring that we have coherent and high quality K-12 curriculum and assessments, as well as our climate and culture to ensure equity and collaboration. But then we have a plus, the district support and accountability. And that is from all divisions. They are providing input on how to make this happen. And we're ensuring that collaboration with the district and conversations are being held to make this substantial change. So what is our current response as we look at the next slide? So how are we responding to this report? In collaboration, and we have great news to share, in collaboration with Human Resources, we have identified practices to recruit and retain teachers. Bill Brigman and Human Resources have assisted Acceleration Schools in organizing an Acceleration Schools interview day with over 230 applicants and 150 attendees that actually went through interviews and spoke with our principals. HR has been very supportive of our principals, and they've worked through and problem solved to ensure that the best teachers are in place in Acceleration Schools. In addition, continuous professional development is provided to our PLC leaders within the schools, teachers and coaches, and effective instructional practices. And lastly, coaching cycles and instructional learning walks are being held to ensure accountability and to ensure that instructional practices are being implemented. Our next key focus is instructional infrastructure. So we know that having high quality curriculum aligned with professional development and assessments is definitely priority in closing the achievement gap. So implementation of bridges and illustrative curriculum are in place, and our focus is on math. Discussions of high-level ELA curriculum is being led by Ms. Woody with other stakeholders, principals, and district personnel. The focus on data-driven instruction, the see it, name it, do it protocol is in place in all Acceleration Schools, and a committee led by Ms. Roberts to identify common interim assessments to pilot in Acceleration Schools as well as the district. And we're making changes to curriculum strategy and teacher training so that teachers understand the available resources on how to plan effective instruction, which includes unpacking standards, data-driven instruction, coaching cycles, and really paying attention to that 90-day plan that principals have highlighted and developed instructional priorities. So at this time, I would like to introduce Principal White at Morningside Middle School.
I want to thank everyone for the opportunity in their respective places to have an opportunity just to highlight the great work that is happening and acceleration schools in that Morningside Middle, specifically when I reflect upon the UVA Partnership for Leaders in Education and what it's meant to me, there are three words that come to mind: consultation, affirmation, and most befittingly, acceleration. Consultation, because from the beginning of the process, as I came into Charleston County School District, I had the opportunity to work with UVA, and specifically we worked on developing our why, which would be our purpose, our North Star that would move us forward. And they ensured that we committed to that process and that we sought buy-in for that same purpose in terms of our why. And then the next portion that we did in our beginning training was developing our 90-day plan. That was the 90-day plan that we would be committed to, that would drive everything that we do in our schools. And ours had two specific priorities. There was culture and climate, and specifically around that, we were going to develop a culture of coaching across the system, but specifically we were trying to address PBIS and just ensure that we had an environment conducive to learning. And then there was instructional framework, which is ensuring that our scholars had access to high quality learning experiences. And so that 90-day plan became our Bible, it became our truth, it became what we were committed to in our foundation, and it has allowed us to do some wonderful things. We also intentionally looked at data. UVA preached it, UVA ensured that data is not necessarily the end all, but it is very important that we look at it, and it's important that it shows that the practices that we are using are being effective. Culture and climate, PBIS was one of our big pushes that was wrapped up in our plans. There was this idea of data-driven instruction. One of my favorite things from the process was having the ability to be under the tutelage of Paul Brambrick Santoya, and he taught us about data-driven instruction, and he taught us about how it should really look, and we had the opportunity to go back and implement that in our schools. And so I lead the team, all of my assistant principals lead the team, the instructional coach leads the team, but one of the most powerful things about it is the teacher says that the process worked and they are appreciative of the process, and it gives them ownership, and it also allows us to go in the trenches to ensure that our scholars are achieving. And then there's an instructional leadership team process that we have embedded in our work, and we're excited about that, which gives us just the ability every morning, 7:20, I have about 15, 16 leaders, teacher leaders joining me, and they look at data and they define what we're going to do at Morningside, and they problem solve versus me telling them what needs to be done. The other portion that we talked about was affirmation. And in terms of affirmation, we had UVA gave us 2 site visits that they brought the director of the UVA process, and they brought principals who had done this work. And it's always amazing when you can engage with folks who've transformed schools in Indianapolis, Charlotte, and I think one of them was from New York, and just to hear and to affirm that what we were doing is powerful and it is working. And then there are acceleration school team visits with Ms. Haynes and Ms. McIntyre, and they come religiously and they come regularly, and I see them weekly, but that is powerful to ensure that I'm accountable, but also just to ensure that it affirms that we're doing the right thing, and sometimes it affirms that we need to change. And then the other thing that I like just for the affirmation is the instructional learning walks. We just experienced one. We had one at the beginning of the year. We had another one this year. And I can say that we saw great things and a great transformation as we went forth. And the last thing is just this idea of acceleration, which is fitting for why I came to Charleston County School District, because the idea of school transformation, the idea of ensuring that all scholars have the access to high quality education is something that I hold dear to my heart. So ultimately the supports from UVA, Ms. Haynes and Ms. McIntyre, Dr. Williams as the Associate Superintendent, has allowed me to positively accelerate our outcomes at Morningside. We've done such, and just to give you some examples, we have about 400 scholars in the building at the moment, about 300 probably at the house. We have about 700. But just looking at our incident rate in terms of discipline, we've decreased it from 5.1 last year to 1.2 this year. We've effectively decreased the number of scholars failing 1 or more classes from last quarter to this quarter by 25%. And so the last thing I'll leave you with, at Morningside, we have a saying that we are going to be bridges to an oasis of opportunity and prosperity for our scholars and their families. And so we believe that we're doing that, and we know with the support of UVA and the Acceleration School team and everyone else included, we'll be able to continue that work.
And the people says amen.
So UVA is just one of the ways in which the board has invested in the acceleration schools and as part of our strategy. Some of it is the investment, obviously, in Ms. Haynes and Ms. McIntyre's position to have a team that's solely focused on the acceleration schools, and they are in the school buildings almost weekly. I've attended, and I know Ms. Simmons and Dr. Williams have both attended walkthroughs with Ms. Haynes and Ms. McIntyre to see how things are going. While UVA has not been able to be here given COVID, Ms. McIntyre is very good at using a phone to film what's going on in order to make sure that they can see some real examples. The other ways in which we're investing is straight up capacity building. Like, the power of this is that it's, I think for this year, it made sure us as a relatively new leadership team coming together, that we were aligned on where we were going and how things like assessment, curriculum, instruction, and talent all fit together in our vision for how we want to transform these schools. Our hope is that next year, as we have all of our acceleration schools that report to Ms. Haynes in the UVA partnership, that help us accelerate that learning to the next level. And we'll continue some professional development that we're doing, particularly around professional learning communities, as we launch the new ELA curriculum first in acceleration schools. So we are expecting that once we make a selection, we will pilot that in these schools next year, because the urgency is more important there than anywhere else. So that concludes our at least initial sense of what's happening in acceleration schools. I would love to hear if there are any questions.
Are there any questions? Dr. Fraser, just saying, I'd just like to say that, you know, if it's the will of the board, it is reports like this that really encourages us of the great work that are happening within our schools. So reports like this will definitely help us to get a better understanding of what exactly is transpiring within the schools, and the type of assessments that's happening that are moving the kids in that right direction, and to also know that we were here, but now we're here. Mr. White, I thank you for your report. I thank you for the confrontation, affirmation, and acceleration report that you gave. It was well received, and it's like those types of reporting that shows that the work that we're putting in place and the collaborative effort that we're making within our schools are working. And these are, it's great to see it on paper, but it's even better to hear it in person. So if it is the will of the board, I would hope that we will hear more of this at our board meeting, so that we can get a better understanding of how we're progressing within the district with these acceleration schools. Dr. Fraser.
Yes, thank you for the report, and I'm encouraged. And I have a couple of questions. My first is, how does one become an acceleration school? And in addition to that, what are we doing about parental involvement and community engagement? Is that important in trying to bring all of your pieces together, and how are we doing that?
Yes, the decision on becoming an acceleration school was a board decision that was based on the performance of those schools, many of which at the time when the decision were made were at the bottom of the state report card list based on student achievement data. Now, given we have not administered the state test last year, we don't have updated data, so we are operating with the same acceleration schools moving forward into the next school year. But that is a question that will come before this board at some point in the next year, is should this be the group of acceleration schools, or do we want to look at a different combination of schools, and what are the criteria to continue? So that was the original question. Your second question about community engagement, when I originally presented our strategy that was owned based in some of the work by UVA, but also the vision that the leadership team had for helping to improve these schools, we had three pillars. One was talent, making sure that we had teachers and leaders who wanted to be in those schools, who had a vision for how to transform those schools, and were committed to particularly working. It is a unique and very challenging job, and we wanted to make sure that we were looking for people and leaders who wanted to do that. The second was instructional infrastructure, some of the things that Ms. Haynes talked about in terms of curriculum, assessments, and making sure that we're doing a continuous cycle of improvement. And the last was community engagement, and this question around making sure that every school has some sort of secret sauce, like what makes that school a place that kids want to go. And I will say, Dr. Fraser, I think that's the one that's been held up by COVID because it's been challenging to be in communities and to bring people together given our current reality. So that is something that we're looking forward to relaunching. I know that Ms. Hederick and I have been talking a lot about downtown schools of Burke and Simmons Pinckney and ways in which we can bring the community together to chart a path forward. So that's our hope that we'll see much more of that and have more to share next year.
Okay, Ms. Hederick?
Thank you all so much. Ms. Belcher, can you just describe how we'll continue to support the 2020 cohort with bringing the new 2021 cohort on?
At this point, obviously, some of this is preliminary because we still haven't approved the budget, but our plan is to continue the UVA partnership, again, with all the schools that report to Ms. Haynes for the next 2 years. It is a 2-year cohort. Because we had some principals that came in late in the school year, we had a more modest cohort this year. Next year, we'll have the full acceleration cohort, again, that report to Ms. Haynes. The second is that we are making a professional development investment that we began this year with Title I monies, as well as some general operating funds that are mission critical for an organization that works directly with schools on the PLC and the curriculum implementation. So they coach school coaches and school principals on what does it look like when the instruction is rigorous? What does student work look like? What are you doing differently the next day? They have been doing that virtually, and we can share some of that in an upcoming meeting. But in the new year, they'll be able to be more present and purposeful here, working both in math and in English language arts. And then the final piece, as Ms. Haynes talked about, is the continued support of the acceleration team, ensuring that we have that regular cycle of continuous improvement. So they're going in and doing learning walks with the principal, outlining areas of strength and areas that need to be improved, expecting to see that the next time that they go in, and helping remove any obstacles. Ms. Haynes referred to this, but Mr. Brigman, Mr. Barohi, Mr. Kennedy, all departments have been incredibly supportive to the acceleration schools, even in COVID, and trying to prioritize what we need so that we're trying to give extra resources and support to help. It's not a punishment to be an acceleration school. The issue is those are schools that we've struggled with for many, many years, and it's on us to do more as a system to support those schools to success.
Great. And it's our hope that UVA comes back to conduct the site visits in the fall?
That is our hope, yes. We're actually planning right now to see if we can, if all of our folks are vaccinated, we would go to UVA this summer because that would give an opportunity for us to have a face-to-face retreat. So far, all of this has been done virtually.
Thank you all. This was fantastic.
Ms. Coates?
Yeah, and I agree with Reverend Mack. It's good to see these things that we approve that are a series of words and phrases turn into really, I want to be able to see what's happening in the hallways and visualize it. And so I want to make sure that because this is a $500,000 a year commitment to those individuals on top of the money that we use to support our individuals. And I want to know that there is somebody that keeps saying at some point because I live there, I know. What's our exit plan? Is this a generational change? Is this a multi-generational thing? Is this 10 years that we need to do this, which would cycle the kids out of North Charleston Elementary through Mr. White's program and middle school to send them on to North Charleston with success? So is there somebody that's looking at that overarching vision that the reason we have acceleration schools is so that we ultimately don't need acceleration schools?
I think that's right, ma'am. I think our vision has probably been a little held back given the COVID, so we couldn't move as fast. So for example, some of the professional development that I alluded to was intended to start in the summer of last year, and we actually couldn't begin until November. So some of this has been held up. The UVA partnership specifically, it's not quite as much as $500,000 a year. This year we spent about $275,000 on the partnership for the 5 schools and the coaching for the executive leadership. That included some preliminary work that was done in fiscal year 2019. Right now, and again, this has not been yet approved by the board in the budget, they're proposing about $400,000 for next year. It is double the number of schools that they'll be serving. And then the last year of the cohort at the most would be $350,000. So it is a significant investment, but I want to make sure I was being precise about what we're being quoted right now. At that point, we would wrap up our UVA partnership because the hope here is that we're building capacity among our leadership team. So myself, Ms. Roberts, Ms. Woody, Dr. Williams and Ms. Simmons, as well as Ms. Haynes and her team on this turnaround strategy. What does it look like when it's done well? Relationships with other school districts who have actually done it, so that we're learning not just from the research and from the coaches that they provide, but actually from other districts that are further along in this process nationally. And then our hope is that we're really sharpening the saw. So right now, you heard Ms. Haynes say our focus is on math instruction. Given that we had a new curriculum, that is where Ms. Haynes and Ms. McIntyre really dig in when they go into schools. That's the work that we're doing around the professional learning communities, around teacher professional development is in math instruction specifically. We will expand that to include ELA as the new English language arts curriculum comes in. And the hope is that we'll do a big 3-year investment in terms of capacity building. And the way that we're doing that is through teacher leadership. So while coaches and principals and assistant principals are playing a big role, we're also identifying leaders in each schools who lead the math and the English language arts PLC. And those folks will have additional responsibilities, also modest, but additional compensation to actually lead those groups. Our hope is we're building a much more robust talent infrastructure that'll keep our most talented teachers there, but also so they get better at their craft. Now, after that, we may assess and say some of these schools no longer need to be acceleration schools. We may decide we need to take on a new professional learning challenge based on what the data would say. But that is our plan for the next couple of years in terms of sharpening the saw and getting to better outcomes for kids.
So if I hear you correctly, ultimately, our goal is that Ms. Haynes and Mr. White are no longer need UVA to have, they become our version of UVA. They become the people who run these types of things because they now have the knowledge and understanding and a team that they can guide. And we won't need an outside entity as much as our staff will be running these sorts of programs without having someone else come in and do the.
That's exactly right. And the fact that Dr. Williams and Ms. Simmons, who obviously lead all the schools across the district, many of which have similar struggles as our acceleration schools, is for us to leverage our learnings across the entire system where it's needed, not just in the acceleration schools. We're just investing more in the acceleration schools right now.
Thank you. I think with COVID though, I get concerned that 3 years, we really have a year. We may have to do something for another year to make up for the fact that we didn't have that real robust partnership of in-person for 1920 and 2021.
Okay, Dr. French.
Yes, I guess I'm also looking at the long game, trying to make sure that we're planning for continuing support. Yes, you'll have more capacity to understand how to do this, but there's going to be turnover. And, you know, if Mr. White is a very successful principal, he may get a great job offer. And then what will we do?
Nope.
I mean, so I'm just saying that things can happen and that a lot of the supports that we give to acceleration schools is what we're calling them, but a lot of time we refer to them as failing schools. Those supports get cut off as soon as they're not failing anymore. And so I want to make sure that we have a plan that budgets for that in the long term, that we're not going to drop the very important supports. In this case, it's mostly about professional development, but maybe that extra, parent advocate that they won't be able to afford in 3 years because they're not getting the extra funding for needing to turn around. I hope we'll hear more about that in the future.
I mean, I think the good news is Mr. Kennedy has been encouraging us since we came in to think about the sustainability and the question about the reserve. So at this point, I cannot point to any strategy and say it's unilaterally working, right? We don't have our student achievement results yet. We don't have enough data to share. My hope is that I will have some real promising data to reflect on the hard work of Mr. White and the other principals, Ms. Haynes, and all the people that I've referred to, and say, this is really working. Let's continue to invest in this. And that may mean a set aside within some of the reserve monies over time, or reallocation of a pretty significant investment the board has already made in our mission critical work. We just have to reassess as we actually see what's working and what's not. I think the good news is that the Charleston County is in a financial position where we can think long-term if we see something successful. And then obviously the COVID recovery monies give a great opportunity as we start to think about our long-term strategy to build capacity up with the hope that we can think about things like creative compensation for high performers and other things over the long term. But that's not where we are right now.
Right. And I guess that I worry because you know, principals are already expecting they're going to lose people as soon as they get their numbers up. You know, they're planning for that. They're trying to deal with that, and they know, you know, they're going to lose certain support personnel just because they're getting special funding for those people right now. Just like you were saying with the CARES grant, for instance, it's a limited time fund. If we're going to start providing extra supports, which we know work, you know, more mental health supports for students, definitely helpful. Well, we can't just take that away once their academic numbers are up. So those are the kind of things I'm really concerned about in terms of, we can't just help them get out of their hole and then let them fall back in.
Absolutely, agreed.
Okay, Dr. Frazier?
Yes, I just have a quick question, and I really want a quick answer. How will we know and when that we're getting the bang for our bucks? How can we assure the public? And when will we know that we have done exactly what we were supposed to do? And when will we report back to the board to let us know about the progress you've made?
So this summer, we should have our MAP results, and then in the early fall, the South Carolina Ready test would be available. When we have that student achievement data, we reported that out to the board in January on the acceleration schools. We didn't see a ton of progress, but math did move more than reading. In this first year, my expectation is that you should see progress in mathematics across the board in the elementary schools at least. Next year, you should see a much more significant progress in mathematics and some early signals on ELA.
So we're using MAP?
MAP, and we also use the South Carolina state test once it's given, ma'am, this spring.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Item 8B, the virtual academy option.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, probably moving second. Are there any questions? Hearing, I'm sorry, Dr. French.
Yes, I have a few concerns about this proposal. There's, I am not opposed to us working, you know, with other districts to make a better virtual program for everybody. I still feel like we don't have a lot of meat in understanding how this is going to work. This is apparently a completely new venture for the Low Country Education Consortium. We, on the other hand, have done virtual school for our students. And, you know, I'm concerned about the idea that we're going to have somebody else manage it for us that hasn't done it before. And I'm also a little concerned, I know Ms. Coates brought this up before, that one of the, I guess, the primary employee of Low Country Education Consortium also started a nonprofit very recently called Low Country Virtual. And does this mean that we're going to get into some kind of financial strangeness? It almost sounds like they're trying to double dip on the same program. So I want to make sure as a district that we're careful about how we are entering into this relationship and make sure we are not going to put ourselves into an appearance of using our money unwisely, for instance. But I also feel like it's concerning, yeah, I've also watched one of the other district board meetings, and it seems that there's different ideas about what the point is of all of this. It still feels like it hasn't come together. And it's hard for me to want to approve a program without more information about how much are we going to budget for it, and you know, what is it really going to be?
Okay, was there a question in that, Dr. France, or that was just a comment? I just want to make sure.
Well, do we have a budget? Or have they told us anything about how much we should expect to pay per seat? That's what other districts are talking about. They're going to pay per seat.
Excuse me. They told us, so they is us, the superintendent, Dr. Kelvin Wims in Dorchester District 4, Mr. Joe Pye in Dorchester District 2, John Tyndall in Colleton, Dr. Eddie Ingram in Berkeley County, and I work together. We are responsible for making sure
that we deliver a program that is of equal or higher quality. It's our belief that by pooling our resources, the program will be better than it currently is, with more offerings for the children who need virtual. And the teachers who will be selected will very likely be the teachers who are teaching now. There will be open opportunities for people to apply. Every participating district will have a representative on the interview committee. It's my assumption that the teachers who would be selected are likely those who are currently teaching. But we are pooling our resources to reduce the overhead that each district is experiencing. They have given us an estimate of $3,200 per student.
How much per student?
$3,200.
$3,200.
$3,200 per student is the estimate they have given us, but the 5 superintendents have reached a place where we can go no further until we know how many students will be participating. As with every other school, the more students who participate up to a certain point, the lower the cost per student gets. The number that Charleston County spent this year per student is about at that level. But we did not calculate our overhead costs of the administrators who've been pulled from other jobs, and the teachers who've been pulled from other jobs, and the district staff who've been pulled from other jobs to cover the teaching slots for virtual. So we know that Greenwood 53 is going to participate. Charleston is participating. Dorchester 4 is not encouraging its elementary students to participate, but they would rather have them participate in the virtual than to lose them into some other option. We know what Dorchester District 2 thinks that they will do, but they're still discussing with their board. Colleton is definitely participating, and then there's another large coastal district that is interested in participating if there are any seats left. As far as double dipping, the superintendents just contacted Mr. Mazik to ask for the name of an attorney who can help with the auditing of the way that this is being set up to make sure that what we're doing is absolutely correct. We simply need a holding place for it. In terms of our contract with the executive director of Low Country Education Consortium, again, rather than hire that employee, which invokes overhead, a lot of overhead, we contract directly with that employee for the services provided to Low Country Consortium only by that individual. There is no additional contract for any other services that involve that individual. So there's no double dipping.
Okay, Ms.
None.
Stokes?
And I know you had, I have spoken to 4 of those individuals that you mentioned, and I'm very glad because 2 of them had said, let's get some legal knowledge on this. And I think that's great because the only concerns that I have had is that these issues of the structure and the potential legal issues that you could run into with the Teacher Appeal and Dismissal Act, and the fact that the state, this is not your fault, y'all just started on this in late February and March. I mean, this was created, but it provides everything that we've wanted in our district, that parents want with options, that we want the collaboration and partnership. I am simply here to say that I support this, but I would love to see the finished product. And I need to know probably 12 months from now that the issues that are the adult issues in this room that have not been resolved by these partnership districts yet don't affect the education quality. That's the concern, that it doesn't become what you are spending a lot of your time on because you haven't crafted that well. So I'm glad to see that Dwayne's getting involved in some of those questions that I have brought up. My caution is, we're not thinking you can't do this. We're not thinking that this isn't a great idea, but there are factors in there that we want to make sure don't distract from the quality education of the kids because of the way this was set up and started. That's my only concern, but I support it. I just would hope that the finished product is something that we can see and the student achievement is not affected by these issues.
Thank you. We can get a lot clearer on the product as soon as we know how many districts are participating. So
Right,
it's
because I know
a
it
chicken
even
and
shifted
egg.
last
It's a
weekend
bit
too. Somebody
iterative.
pulled 2 of their grades out of it. And so I know you don't even have all the districts that have decided which kids they're sending yet.
That's right. So, but we have been given till April 30th to get that information to the director, and then we can come back with a much clearer plan. And if for any reason it doesn't work for Charleston County students, we simply will withdraw. We're not signing a commitment here. We're asking the board to make a commitment, which will allow the administration to determine whether this is a better option for our students. I should also mention that a bill has been introduced. Mr. Kennedy and his financial people ran the numbers for Charleston County. With only 484 students participating in virtual next year, we would lose about $2 million in funding. So this is a very serious issue. The push is to have students back in school face-to-face. That's where we want to put our time and attention.
Okay, there's a motion that has been moved by Ms.
I have a
Darby.
question.
I'm sorry, Dr. Freeman.
Yes, are we being asked to sign off on a program that we know nothing about, how much it's going to cost the district and how much funding we're going to lose?
No, ma'am, we are asking you to do exactly what's on the recommended action, to approve Charleston County entering into a partnership with the other Low Country school districts through the Low Country Education Consortium to offer a high-quality K-8 virtual program and supplement what we are doing for students in 9 through 12. We do not want in the long-term K-8 virtual business. That's not our core business. We'd like to get out of that business as quickly as possible.
But without a budget, I'm saying.
The approximate number they've given us is about $3,200 per student maximum. That could go down depending on the number of students who participate, the number of districts who participate.
But that's cost per student. I'm talking about to implement this program. Do we have any idea of how much this program is going to cost the district?
$3,200 per student times the number of students who participate. There will be no overhead for this district. That's the advantage. That's a very important question. Thank you for asking for the clarification.
Reverend Mack,
Yes.
were you getting ready to call the question?
Yes. You have a question? You have a question,
question,
Ms. Green? Okay, all right. Is there any further questions? Hearing none. There's a motion on the floor. Been moved by Ms. Darby and second by Ms.
Excuse me, I think that when you call the question, you have to vote to end debate.
Well, technically, technically, if you have a policy and your policy gives every board member amount of time to debate an issue, your policy supersedes any of, I think people sometimes get confused with what Robert Rules is. Robert Rules is kind of like a guidance, but it's not the law. But I think technically, Dr. French is right. If you're going to call the question while there's still some debate, then a motion must be made to call the question. It must be seconded and then voted on. So she's technically right.
Well, and I will not debate you, Attorney Mazzito, at all, but I did ask if there are any final questions, even though that was the case. So the call
there was no more debate.
The call to question did not overrule the final debate. I mean, the final call for any additional questions. So
you're absolutely right. Yeah. So you actually didn't need a call to question. You could just go ahead with the motion.
Okay, it's already been moved and seconded, and Pastor, please cast your vote. It's always good to have clarification. Are we waiting on anyone?
There we go.
There we go. Okay, that motion passes. All right, item 9, I'm sorry, yes. Item 9A,
Move to approve.
probably moved by Ms. Coates, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that motion passes. Item 10A. I believe, is it Mr. Kennedy or Mr. Welcher?
So the,
Yes, it's for information. Is there any, on the procurement audit report, fiscal year 2020, it's listed as information. Are there any questions about it or any additional comments you want to give? No. Does anyone have any questions about that item? Okay, item 10B. It's also for information on the SWMDE report that's been listed in your packet. Are there any questions? Okay, you also have the monthly capital project report that's been listed in your packet as information. Is there any questions in relation? Hearing none, item 10D, the monthly financial report. It's been listed in your packet for information. Are there any questions in relation to the monthly financial report? Item 10E is the update on FY22 budget listed in your packet for information. Are there any questions in relation to that item? Hearing none, item 11A, the board meeting schedule 21-22.
Reverend Mack, I think we have the items we pulled out from potential consent now.
Yep, yeah, we'll get to that.
I move
Thank
to
you.
approve the proposed schedule of board meetings from July 2021 through June 2022.
Properly moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that motion passes. In the opening of our agenda setting, there are several items that were removed from the consent to be discussed. Item 12A. That is the recommendation for the C.E. Williams North. I believe that was Ms. Coakley that asked for that item. Ms. Coakley?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, you want to go ahead and have discussion in reference to that? What, you had a question or concern that you want to discuss?
I just wanted to, and I apologize, because like I said, I went back over just the meeting from last week, and just curious to know, is there room for just was there open dialogue with the community, I guess feedback in reference to leaving it the way it is? Or is there a way that we can get just a little bit more community feedback before we just place them on the waiting list for whatever it is that we're planning to do with them next year?
Yeah, I believe, and I'm going to either let Dr. Postway or Dr. Williams respond, but at our last meeting, last week, Monday, I believe they gave an extensive report on this particular item, but Dr. Williams is walking toward the microphone to give you an update.
I'll just do that. Great evening. Ms. Cokie, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Thank you. Yes, I can. Good evening. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So both principals, Maite Porter and Kevin Smith, met with a few groups of parents, scholars, and staff to really get some feedback from them on the current configuration. They presented that to the board on last week. And in reference to next year, this year, we were supposed to meet with some stakeholders from the community to discuss that middle school configuration for the future in West Ashley and D10. And because of us bringing scholars back in person, that was what took the majority of our focus this year. And so what we said is that the recommendation was to keep the configuration as is, for the 2021-2022 school year. And next year, we would reconvene and have that focus group come together, being led by Mr. Jeff Baroy and me assisting as needed to actually talk with them about the future of middle schools in D10.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Ma'am, the conversation went from starting this year to actually just being moved to next year.
No, I got it. And that's why I wanted to make sure the clarification was when I looked at it. So that was something that we were supposed to focus on this year. COVID took everything. So we're going to redo that for next year. So when we do this, all right, that makes sense. Community leaders. All right, so leave it at is. I got it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So Ms. Coakley, it's my apologies to you. Just realized that you were not at the last board meeting. So clearly you did not hear the presentation that was made and you were just reading the information that was included in your packet. So that is my error. And
oh, no, actually I went back and I reviewed it, but I wanted to make sure that that was the understanding, that it was clear from that. And you just hurt my feelings. You didn't miss me there in a whole week. I'm not gonna let that one fly by, but yeah, I missed you too. Happy belated birthday, Reverend Matt.
Thank you. All right.
So can I make a motion?
Yes.
I move to continue with the current configuration for middle schools in D10 with 6th grade scholars housed on the Williams North Campus and 7th and 8th graders housed on the C.E. Williams South Campus until a committee can be formed during the 2021-2022 school year to discuss the future configuration for middle school scholars in D10.
Second.
Properly moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Coates. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that motion passes. Item 12D was moved for discussion.
Move to approve the Head Start, Early Head Start funding COLA supplement application and budget for the grant period June 1, 2021 through May 31st, 2022.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Dr. French. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. The motion passes. Item 12E was removed from consent for consideration and discussion. Is there a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Coates for approval of item 12E. Is there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. The motion passes. Item 12F was removed from consent for consideration for discussion. Further discussion, is there a motion?
I move to approve option 2 for funding Morningside Middle.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Ms. Coakley? Got it? Thank you. That motion passes. Item 12G was removed for further discussion.
I'll move to approve the appointment of Velma Stamp as an audit and finance community volunteer through April 2023. Second.
Properly moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Coates. Are there any questions?
Yes. I have a question.
Dr. Frazier?
Yes, my question is, I don't know whether you can say this at this time, but I do approve this, but then take a look at how we dealt with this during the last portion of the board meeting. We discussed how this election process is processed.
Yeah, if you can repeat again, I'm sorry.
I'm approving this, but I have some concerns about the process and wonder whether this board would consent at another time for you to take a look at this.
Okay.
Dr. Frazier, we talked, if you, is that okay?
Oh, that's fine. I'm sorry.
We talked about that at the committee of the whole, and I think that Mr. Kennedy responded that he followed the process like is the audit and finance policy. And so we talked, I'm comfortable with that he followed that process. So I don't feel a need to spend any more time on that personally myself. I think we talked about that at the committee of the whole. You raised that concern, and I think that's been addressed. And if you have any further concerns, you could certainly talk with Ms. Green, who's the audit finance chair.
All right, Dr. French?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, well, Ms. Darby, I just wanted to point out that, yeah, I think that Ms. Green actually brought up that the process is for, yes, the chief financial officer receives the resumes, but then the committee selects from those applications. And I think the real problem is just an appearance of an issue because Mr. Kennedy is being provided oversight by the committee. And so that's where it comes into play is the staff recommending the person that's going to provide oversight for them. It's just an appearance that we can deal with in the long run. I don't think, I think it can be done cooperatively. Yeah.
Okay. You want to say something?
I'm not sure. I wasn't able to follow the conversation, so I don't know if I need to respond at all.
You're good. I thought you were just raising your hand. Maybe you're just scratching your head. I don't know. I get it. I do that sometimes myself. All right. Any further questions or comment? Let's see. Next item up on the list. It's 13A. Well, I'm sorry. We have to vote. I'm sorry. We have to vote.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we vote on that?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Voting.
Okay, that motion passes. Next item up on the list is, did we remove?
No,
H?
I added, I have a motion.
That's right. Okay, item 12H, I'm sorry.
I move to consider Deer Park, AC Cochran, and Midland Park at the capital recommendations for those at the June board meeting, and ask staff to provide further explanation on the scope of work for these three items and to review if there are any schools on the master list with severe safety needs the board should consider for 8% funding.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Hederick. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Who's that? Dr. French?
Yes.
Dr. French.
So Ms. Darby, when you were asked earlier why this was separated out, you didn't mention that you wanted to change the scope of considering these projects. I thought that you just wanted us to look at these projects, but now you're trying to change it so that we're going to put it off and consider replacing these projects with others.
No, I'm not considering, that's not what the motion is. These items came to the Audit and Finance Committee, came to the Committee of the Whole. We didn't discuss them at the Committee of the Whole. I'll own up. We should have had more, we should have discussed them at the Committee of the Whole. There was a motion to put them on the consent agenda. If we left them on the consent agenda, we would have voted on that without the board having discussion on adding these 3 items for, to 8% funding, which is taxes. So I wanted us to separate them out because Morningside we'd already voted on in March. And I'm just asking for staff for a little bit more information on these and to just make sure I think there's some severe safety needs at least 2 of these schools, maybe 3. And are there any other severe safety needs of projects that are below the line that we need to address? So I want to see those 3 approved, but we haven't discussed it in our Committee of the Whole or the board meeting.
But that's all things come out of audit and finance. They automatically go to the consent agenda.
No, they don't. The policy says items approved by unanimous consent and reviewed at a Committee of the Whole meeting will be moved to the potential consent agenda. We didn't review them. We didn't discuss them at all at the.
We didn't, but there's a different section of policy for audit and finance that addresses what comes out of audit and finance unanimously goes on to the consent agenda for the board.
That policy.
No, that's from the Committee of the Whole.
Look, I made the motion. If you don't agree with the motion, that's fine. You can vote it down.
Okay. Any further questions? I'm sorry, who's calling?
It's Courtney, Miss Waters.
Okay, Ms. Waters.
Yeah, I just wanted to also offer that this is actually an opportunity, not not adding things to replace. Frankly, from the school visits that we did the other day, it was made very clear that the portable situations at many of the schools are likely creating safety concerns for students. And so it's an effort to examine and actually potentially, think about what more we could do. And so, I don't want folks to think this is, pitting projects against the other, but it's an opportunity to see what comes back and then assess whether or not we have the capability to do more than what's being proposed currently, which is, I believe, what happened originally.
Okay. Ms. Coates?
So I've been on this board a long time. I was here when Kate and Todd wrote the policy that she quoted. I voted to approve it. But if it was on the agenda and the board chose to not have that opportunity, just like the items that Reverend Mack just listed, this is on the agenda. Does the board wish to discuss? The board remains silent. Are we going to pull those back? Can I pull those back next month because we didn't discuss them? So I think structurally that's a little shaky. And second is I'm concerned because I really don't want us to have to go back to the community of North Charleston again and tell them that we're kicking the can down the road on these projects. I would really like to make to amend that we approve the Deer Park, Midland Park, and AC Cochran, and bring back the whole structure, the whole below the line item in June, so we can see if there are more. Just like we've committed to the community that we're going to build Morningside, I would like this board to commit to the community that we're going to stop children from walking in the rain to their cafeteria or those portables at AC Cochran without stopping the fact that we still need to have this future discussion. There's still $124 million worth of North Charleston projects below the line after this. So it's a big issue, but I would ask that we could give our community some level of comfort.
Okay, Ms. Darby and then Ms. Green.
Speaking to the process, we've taken other items off the consent agenda before. We're following policy. We voted to do that. We need to move on from that. I agree we have some real need. These items were on the list that were voted on by the public. They were not on the list above the line to get that reference of sales tax funding. I'm asking for us to just have a little bit more discussion. I have 6+ years I've been on the board, voted in favor of everything supporting schools, and I will do again. There was a conversation in audit and finance, and we have not had any further. If somebody wasn't at audit and finance, they haven't been on this conversation. So these schools were not expecting, unless somebody's made a commitment to them, that this will be moving their stuff forward. We can do that in June. We can do 8%, make 8% decisions whenever the majority of the board decides to, and that is reasonably feasible from a money standpoint to do it. So I think I don't have a problem with us letting staff do what the motion is and come back and address it in June.
Okay, Ms.
Do you
Green.
consider allowing staff to discuss those projects tonight?
Yeah.
Ms. Green.
I guess from the audit and finance perspective, I just, the fact that we even considered those schools, I asked the question because that was not what audit and finance was asked to do. Audit and finance was asked to find a way to fund Morningside. And so when we talked about the agenda for audit and finance, my question to staff was, you know that Morningside was the school that we approved. These other 3 projects being added, I'm assuming, and this is kind of what I said to staff, I'm assuming that you are just providing the information on these schools based on this, on the fact that they were discussed, but not approved when we had the meeting. So from my perspective, listening to some of the other board members talk about the safety issues, I'm certainly in favor of approving these, even though I'm still a little concerned about how they came to audit and finance. I don't have I'm not opposed to any time that we can improve on the safety of the school. But since they came to us the way they did, I think it is appropriate to ask staff to look at it in conjunction with the safety and to maybe come back with some prioritization on the schools that we should do something else with. If we go over the $77 million, then the whole, the funding thing may have to be reevaluated anyways. So, I would just say it would be appropriate if we could, and I'm okay if you can come back at the May meeting, because you probably already know what that information is, but I would like to make sure that if we are choosing 3 schools to do something with, that we are choosing the school with the greatest need.
Okay, this motion been made by Ms. Garvey, seconded by Ms. Hedrick, I believe.
To be clear, even though she said she was okay with May, the board's fixing to vote on June, correct?
Well, that's just one person.
But
the
I didn't make
motion,
a motion.
Well,
the
I know,
motion.
but if you're asking for the motion hasn't changed. I just want to make sure we know that's what we're voting on.
Right, we're voting on June. We're voting on what the motion, what has been stated.
May I
on.
ask one more question?
Dr. French. I'm sorry, everybody's voice now is beginning to
Oh,
sound.
sorry. I guess I wanted to know, waiting until after we go through the budget, the first reading of the budget is going to impact whether or not.
Yeah, it will
we could
not,
do this.
because this is separate funding from that. That won't affect.
Okay, would there be any opposition to a friendly amendment to review it in May?
I checked with staff, and Ms. Rowe said they needed some time to be able to, I think, come back to audit finance, or tell me, Mr. Rowe, you recommend it.
My documents for audit and finance next month are due today to Mr. Kennedy. So
Okay.
I need more time to do a deeper dive into the projects. We provided a recommendation based on the information that we had, and I still believe in that recommendation, but we will most certainly go back and do a more detailed review. That having that extra month will allow us to come back and provide that evaluation.
Thank you.
If you want more discussion, would it be more appropriate to bring it back to the CAL instead of audit and finance, since we're all on the CAL?
Well, I think that's what I think you can't, I mean, it would be not to take it audit and finance, but audit and finance deserve to have the discussion, and then obviously if the CAL needs to have more discussion than we typically have, then that's up to the board members to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be on the agenda for the CAL coming from audit finance, unless
Right, for discussion. Mr. Kennedy, are you scratching your head or you want to say something? I can't tell. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so it's not feasible for the May board meeting. The Audit and Finance Committee is Tuesday of next week. So there's the safety component of this, and then there's the financing of it. And so we have to do these in sequence, and it's not enough time to get the financial advisors to do the analysis. And the Audit and Finance Committee definitely needs to weigh in on the finance, on financing any additional debt.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, there is a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. No further questions. We ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that motion passes. All right, item 13A.
Did we miss one day board retreat for Lisa?
I'm sorry?
Did we miss?
That's still on the consent agenda.
It's on the consent agenda. Do you need, okay, you want me to talk about that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So it's set for May 26th. We agreed to that time frame, lunch being from 12 to 1, and the board retreat will, the board workshop will begin at 1 p.m. until 4:30. Okay, any questions about it? Yeah, questions about the board workshop?
I have a question about something else.
Huh?
I have a question about something else.
Okay, all right.
Procedural.
Well, let me hang on for a minute. That Fraser, that, yeah, further questions about it?
Yeah. So this is going to be a workshop, because when I hear the word retreat, then I think about board members getting together to share concerns, to talk about how we can be a better board, how we can be more responsive to this community. So please share with me, how is this going to be different from what we're experiencing now?
So this workshop, of course, once after tonight, it's probably starting tomorrow, Wednesday, you're probably be getting a call from the facilitator who will have a personal interview with each board member, asking a series of questions. Okay, once those questions have been, or that data have been collected, he will draft the scope of what that workshop will entail as far as board governance is concerned, and we will begin to mitigate through that entire process. And we will engage with each other, and we will engage in activities that he will assign and he will draft. And so during that period of time, we will begin to learn about board governance and structure, and based upon the assessment of the evaluation that he does with each board member by the interviewing process. So you have an opportunity to share any of your concerns related to those questions that he asked, so that those things can be crafted in a manner that we all will learn from it.
And I guess I'm thinking about the setup, because right now we're in a setup for a board meeting. Is this going to be the same for the board workshop, or?
No, so it'll be more of a, I don't know, keep in mind, we're still in COVID too. All right, so it may be different. I don't know how they'll structure the room, but I'm sure it may be a square to where we'll be facing everyone, and the facilitator may be sitting in the middle. I don't know, but however it's drafted, he will engage, everyone will be engaged in that process, I assure you, in that workshop, and you will be able to freely respond to whatever the practice that he's engaging in, or whatever the process he's going through, to try to get you to understand the process of how board governance operate and how we are to operate as a board and what our focus and so all of that is a part of the process. So this is just one of, I see many other workshops that will take place to help build board membership and governance as we move forward. If that helps. I hope I answered your question to some degree. All right. Okay.
So the procedural question of if someone wants to change their vote on something earlier on the agenda, how would they approach you to do that?
If someone wants to
Change their vote on an item earlier in the agenda?
change their vote on earlier on the agenda, the vote that has already went through,
Yes.
the process.
What's the-
So, yeah,
Mr. Reverend Mack,
yes,
the only way to do that is if somebody made a motion for reconsideration of an earlier motion, but that person would have to be on the prevailing side. Can't be somebody who voted nay in the yeses won. So if somebody voted on the winning side and they want to change it, they can make a motion for reconsideration of that particular item.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Parliamentarian. All right. So upcoming meetings, item 13A. So there may be a possible special call meeting on Monday, the 3rd, to talk after the audit and finance meeting is when?
Tuesday.
It's tomorrow?
The 4th.
The 4th, okay, all right. So there may be a possible call meeting on Monday the 3rd, May 3rd. Let's see, what's the time? What's the good time?
Excuse me, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize. I chatted in the box. I guess I do have to be there to be heard. I apologize. My computer did something funny. That's me asking about a vote that I put in that I didn't realize until it went back up. How do I, is it
Sorry,
possible?
Ms. Coakley, what did you say?
I'm asking the question. I put in the box. I'm the one that's trying to see if I can't change a vote. My computer did something funny. I don't know if it froze, but I was trying to get through. I've sent the email to the chat box, but nobody was answering me, but I'm trying to figure out how I fix something.
Okay, well, that's different from what Dr. French just asked. If your computer inaccurately recorded a vote, you can just state that to the board chairman, and then he can have that changed in the minutes.
Oh yeah, I didn't tell her what I didn't tell her. I just asked like, how do I do this? And so I'm letting y'all know that that's what happened. I put it in the box, the chat box, but nobody was hearing me. So I guess I do have to be in the room to be heard.
Right. I'm sorry. I wasn't looking at the chat box. I don't even know how to use it, to be honest with you, Ms. Coakley. But if you voted in agreement with something, but you meant to say nay, if you just want to make that a part of the record, and we can have Julia or whoever does the minutes just accurately reflect what you intended to do.
I do. And like I said, it's not until after I refreshed my computer and went back. You want me to just say it out loud or say it right now? Which one it was?
You can, yes, ma'am. Just for the record, yes, ma'am. I want you to tell the board chair which item it was and how you voted and how you meant to vote. Yes, ma'am.
It was the the third Low Country Consortium.
Consortium?
Yeah, the Low Country one. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I hit A. I meant to hit nay.
Okay. Well, we'll let the record. I'm sorry.
Item 8.
It's the little. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Reverend Mack. I apologize.
No, you're good. Item 8B. Julie, are you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coakley.
And Ms. Coakley, you're voting nay?
I think she
That's
voted.
correct.
She wanted to vote nay. She voted yes.
Okay, all right. She wants to vote nay.
Thank you, Ms. Coakley.
Thank you, and my apologies. I was trying to figure out, and like I said, I'm just getting okay.
No need to apologize. Technology does what it wants to do sometimes.
I'm sorry, Dr. Frazier.
What's the reason for the special called meeting?
So 2 items. One is student transfers. And the second is our teachers have been, and all of our employees, I would say, have been exceptionally, have done an exceptional job from day one, from the very beginning. Since the beginning of the school year, our teachers and our employees, our entire staff have went back in from day one and has done a tremendous job throughout this pandemic situation. The discussion for a possibility of another bonus to be done to our employee staff for their exceptional work to be discussed on Monday. And I'm asking the board to come prepared to have that discussion. And to wrap in your minds as well too, that we repeat the same cycle of bonus that we did in the early part of the year. I think our staff duly deserve it, and I would like for the board to come prepared in consideration to do another round of bonus for our employees. So that is the two reasons for discussion.
Hopefully, it sounds like a great idea. I think that our parliamentarian would agree that if the board if there's a board consensus on anything, we can add it to the agenda, and you're asking for a special call meeting before the audit and finance committee. So is there a reason we can't do that tonight? We're not waiting on any financial reports.
Well, I would not advise it because I don't think it's emergent.
Okay.
You can add action items if you think there's an emergency. If this was the last payroll or something like that from finance, so this was the last day they could process it, maybe that, but I don't see anything emergent about it. But if you thought it was something emergent and you had 2/3 vote, you could put it on the agenda as an action item. But I would not advise that for that item.
All right, thank you. Dr. French.
Just for clarity, does that include the hourly employees as well?
All employees. Yes, Dr. French. I'm sorry, you had a question or you just waiting?
No, I'll talk with you later.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Okay, committee of the whole, May 10th, we'll have a budget workshop prior to the committee of the whole meeting on May 10th, and then on May 24th, the regular board meeting. May 26th is a half-day workshop. The half-day workshop. And then June 14th will be the committee of the whole, preceded by the budget workshop.
Yeah.
All right, so entertain a motion for an adjournment. All right, this meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.